Welcome! I'm your host, the Gallery Guru here. I'm an appraiser trainee and a real estate expert, and today I want to talk with you about earnest money. More specifically, what exactly is earnest money and the way a buyer can lose their earnest money in a Texas residential contract. The earnest money of a Texas residential contract is a deposit made by the buyer to demonstrate their serious intent and commitment to purchase the property. This amount is negotiated on the top of page 2 of the 124 family contract. It is typically 1% of the purchase price, but again, this is a negotiated amount. It serves as a form of security and shows the seller the buyer is committed to this transaction. This is placed at a title company office in an account, and it is held while the title commitment is being ordered, the loan process is being done, appraisals are being ordered, survey is being ordered, and other due diligence until there is a clear to close on this property transaction. If the sale goes through as planned, the earnest money is applied towards the closing costs. However, if the buyer defaults, and there are a few ways that this can happen, the seller may be entitled to keep the earnest money as compensation for the time and effort invested in this transaction. Here are some additional details regarding scenarios a buyer will lose their earnest money. First, a buyer does not make the closing date deadline, and the seller does not want to extend to a future date from the original date on the contract. A buyer has the option to close earlier than the closing date due to the Texas residential contract saying on or before. Number 2, failure to meet financial conditions. On the third-party financing addendum, it typically outlines specific conditions that must be met for the buyer to obtain financing. This is on the second page of the third-party financing addendum. Please review and examine if needed. But these conditions may include securing the loan approval with a certain time frame, and we typically put 15 to 21 days. This is also a negotiated amount of time, so please review. Also, to obtain specific interest rates, providing necessary financial documents to the lender. And if the buyer fails to meet these conditions within this time frame, the seller may have the right to cancel the contract and keep the earnest money. 3, a buyer must carefully review and adhere to the terms and conditions outlined in the contract. Time is of the essence. This includes meeting deadlines for option periods, property appraisals, surveys, any other thing that's agreed upon in the contract. And do not purchase a car or co-sign for a car or even buy any major furniture during the loan process. This will disrupt the loan process and will most likely have a loan denied. This has happened before. While you're in the loan process, please consult your lender or your realtor, like myself, if you want to do any major purchases. If the buyer fails to fulfill the loan process after the negotiated days, this triggers a denial and the loan is forfeited and the earnest money is kept by the seller. Okay, 4, HOA requirements. If the property is in a subject HOA, which is a homeowners association, you will and you want something specifically done at the property, like a basketball hoop in the front yard or a daycare at the property, or you want to park your company vehicle in the driveway, you will need to read the HOA rules and regulations within the negotiated time. It's on paragraph 6D of the 124 family residential contract. Please consult a realtor on the amount of days that you have negotiated. A buyer must comply with these rules and regulations set forth in the HOA bylaws. This may also include obtaining approval for modifications. And to comply with those requirements, and if you don't, then it will trigger termination on the contract and you will forfeit the earnest money. Okay, and last but not least, failure to deliver the earnest money in a timely manner. This contract specifically says within 3 business days of the executed contract. If the buyer fails to provide the earnest money within this time frame, and there are some exceptions, the seller may have the right to terminate the contract and retain the earnest money. It is important, y'all, for buyers to carefully review all terms and conditions of the contract. They need to either seek legal advice if needed or work closely with their real estate agent, like myself, to ensure compliance. By doing so, a buyer can minimize the risk of losing their earnest money. To summarize this segment, the earnest money demonstrates a buyer's commitment to the transaction, and buyer has ways of losing their earnest money, and it needs to be explained to the buyer before signing anything. If you're enjoying my YouTube channel, please subscribe. Bye for now.